Okay, so music technology, definition, devices, activities, and concepts. So this lecture serves as an introduction to the field of music technology generally, and to the field of computer music technology specifically, which of course is the name of this class. We're going to inspect the meaning of the term music technology. And we're going to overview the entire topic by looking at common devices, activities, and concepts, both in the realms of music technology and computer music technology, which of course is just a subset of music technology. So our purpose here is to define, but it's also useful to know what the point is. What are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Being able to define music technology and identify its various forms is critical to achieving success in this field. So as musicians, if you want to move forward as an audio engineer or as a producer or a composer, it's really useful to know the definition of music technology and to be aware of its various subsets. That's the point. Here are the learning objectives. So of course, we're going to define music technology. You'll be able to describe common music technology devices and differentiate between what's called electromechanical and what's called purely electronic instruments. So there are categories of electronic instruments, and we should be able to differentiate between them. Summarize sequencing, multi-track recording, score writing, and live sound production. These are the activities of music technology. If you're making beats, you're sequencing, or if you're recording a band, you're multi-track recording. If you're a composer, you're usually score writing. And then, of course, if you're an audio engineer, oftentimes you're running live sound. These are the things that people do in this field of study. Another objective is to outline the effect of AI, artificial intelligence, on today's music and its potential effect on the future of music. And then cite the primary concepts that are resonant to the field of music technology. Okay, that's what we are set out to do. Let's begin with the definition, which, like many definitions, is continually shifting. New equipment, software, and techniques are always being devised, so the concept is changing slowly over time. Just imagine 50,000 years ago, some cave-dwelling genius began banging rocks and sticks together, right, with musical intent, with some sort of beat, probably accompanied by grunting. In any case, this person would have been on the forefront of music technology. See, because those two sticks, or that rock and stick set, they were devices that supported the production of music. And that's our definition here, right? So any device, the obvious being a computer, but an instrument is a device, or activity, like score writing or sequencing. And then, of course, concepts like overdubbing, or some of the concepts that artificial intelligence seems set to inflict upon music technology. So if you can try to hammer this into your brain somehow, your friend asks you, hey, what's this class you're doing? And you say, oh, it's called computer music technology. We're focusing on music technology generally. And incidentally, music technology is any device, activity, or concept that supports the production of music. Computers, sticks, and all the rest. Okay, so this is the organizing principle for the rest of this presentation. We're going to take a look at the common devices and the common activities, as well as the concepts that marry the entire field into a unified whole. Here's a bit of a table of contents. So first things first, we're going to look at the devices, because it's probably the most obvious or conspicuous example of music technology. And these devices are organized into three broad categories. So that's nice. There's not a trillion things to keep in mind. There are just three basic category of music technology. There's transducers, which include microphones. There's electronic instruments, which include your keytar, say. And there's computer-based devices like digital audio workstation software and MIDI. Okay, like I said, the devices are the most conspicuous, and I assume that many of you already have some experience using music technology devices, right? Especially the microphone. There's no way around it. It's probably going to be the most important music technology device for all of human history. Of course, microphone is what's facilitating this interaction here. So professional audio equipment is the most conspicuous. Every public performance features a backdrop of loudspeakers, microphones, amplifiers, effects, processors, monitors, mixing boards, DAWs, and so on. Now, it's been a while since live music has been available, but I'm sure you have some experience here. You go to see a show at a bar or a restaurant or a recital, and oftentimes the stage is just a convoluted pile of music technology equipment. It seems that moving forward, this is going to be par for the course. The devices. Let's take a look at the transducers first. And as I mentioned, the devices of music technology are organized into these three broad categories. Now we need to look at the transducers first, because they are arguably the most important. Right? They are what facilitate all else in music technology. At the end, you got to listen to it on your headphones, right? Well, your headphones are a transducer. At the beginning, someone has to sing or rap, etc., or play something into a microphone, right? And that's what a transducer is. It takes one form of energy and converts it into another. So in the case of a microphone, imagine sound energy, the compression and rarefaction of air molecules in what we call a sound wave. You take that energy, which is mechanical, exists in the atmosphere type real energy that you can feel on your skin. Say, a loud enough sound will feel like wind. So you take that mechanical energy and you convert it via a microphone, which is a transducer, into electricity. You convert it into what's called analog audio. And on the other end of the spectrum, you take that analog audio and you convert it back into mechanical energy via a loudspeaker. That's also a transducer. Right? Anybody asks you on the street, what's the most important piece of music technology equipment? You say, thanks for asking. It's a transducer. So here's what it's doing. It's creating the magic of analog audio. You look at that crowded stage full of cables and music technology gear. What's inside those cables is analog audio. Now let's take a look at that word analog. Essentially, it means this. So jolts and squirts of electricity that coincide with twangs and pings of sound. So the twangs and pings of real sound out in the world, creating these sound waves, end up having the same shape and intensity and lifeline as the electricity that they inspire into existence via the transducer. Now, I tried to find a picture here that's pretty close, but that's what an analogy is. One thing standing in for the other, that are alike in one particular way, though fundamentally different. Electricity is fundamentally different than molecules bumping into one another. So that's what analog means when someone says, oh, I like analog audio, or back in the analog days. This exists without any computer interference. You can take a transducer like a microphone and create analog audio. Okay, that's what a transducer does. It creates our music signals inside of our wires. But there's more than just a microphone. You can also do this with pickups. So guitars, basses, even some brass instruments, you can attach a pickup or a microphone clip. And these nickel strings, they vibrate over the magnets and they perturb the electrons into life into that analog audio. The electricity created by this pickup will have the same exact shape and character as the vibrating strings. That's the point. And then underneath some acoustic guitars and basses is what's called a piezo pickup, which is a crystal. And if you apply pressure to the crystal, it maintains that voltage. But then if you vary the pressure on the crystal, it gives you a change in electricity, and that's shown in the shape of the wave. And so these strings vibrating on top of this bridge, underneath this bridge is that crystal, that piezo pickup, piezo electricity, and it's being squeezed and vibrated by the strings and the bridge and creating an equivalent analog flow of electricity. Those are pickups. It's like a microphone for instruments. Third and finally, in the transducer category, we have the tone wheel. Now imagine if you had a disc that was set rotating by a little electric motor, like this is like a motor inside a Hammond organ. So you turn it on like a vacuum cleaner essentially, and this spins. And then it spins many series of rotating discs, which I think there's one for each key. I'm not sure. I've never taken apart a Hammond myself. In any case, there's many of these tone wheels there, and they're just set spinning. And then much like that guitar pickup, it's set by a coil of copper and a magnet. And the pitch generated by this whirling tone wheel. So, I mean, just imagine a vacuum cleaner running, right? An electric motor is essentially singing a note, and you place them in front of a magnet and a coil of copper, and that transduces audio as well. So we're talking about music technology devices, and the transducers are probably the most important one, right? Because they're making musical sounds into electricity, which is step one, no matter what, before we even get to the computer. Okay, let's go on to the next category of device, which is the electronic instruments. And we were just taking a look at electric guitars and basses, but there's also this form of electronic instrument that doesn't have moving parts like an electric guitar or a bass or a Hammond organ. They are just circuit boards, and we just refer to them as purely electronic. So there is a difference between one having moving parts and the other one just being static circuitry. So let me show you what I mean. In the realm of static circuitry, there was an evolution of parts, but it began with things that look like circuit boards that had vacuum tubes and various other electronic components. So this would be par for the course until I'm pretty sure mid-1960s into the early 1970s, when it was replaced by solid state technology, the microchip here. And what that means is if you open up a keyboard that's part of, say, this digital audio workstation, there's no moving parts in here. This is just a purely electronic instrument. In fact, this one is a MIDI controller, which brings us to another device, and that is the digital audio workstation, which is probably the most common music technology device nowadays. Yes, the electronic instruments are still prevalent, but they're pretty obvious. Okay, there's some that are old, like the electric guitar, and there's some that are new and are just basically computers inside a box, like a Korg, Triton workstation, etc. But for the most part, music production these days, the heart and soul of that is the digital audio workstation. And this is a computer-based music production system that integrates hardware and software. The hardware are things like the speakers and the MIDI controller and the monitors, and the software, of course, is what's running inside. That looks like Logic or GarageBand, I'm not sure. Okay, and one more device here, and that's AI. And that is artificial intelligence, which is already creeping into the realm of music technology. The digital audio workstation and MIDI technology have already drastically changed our musical universe, but artificial intelligence seems poised to inflict an even greater change. And the first inkling of this is already seeping into our lives via music streaming services like Spotify, Google Play, and Pandora. So when you choose a song on one of these platforms, like Spotify, you'll notice that the program begins feeding you music in the same vein. If you choose a Ray Charles song, say, you might be invited to listen to Ike Turner next. It's almost like Spotify has a brain, a computer system that simulates intelligence like this to predict a person's music listening preferences. That's known as artificial intelligence. It's really common on the internet these days, especially in the realm of business and advertising. The internet is just watching you. Okay, so this technology is obviously going to have implications on music technology and the future of music generally. So there are many potentials here. An artificially intelligent program can be used to compose or perform, and innovative companies are emerging that are devoted to AI and are devoted to AI-driven music composition, right? Music composed by a robot. So this includes IBM Watson, Google, Magenta, Amber Music, and there are others. Okay, so moving forward with our definition. Those were the devices. There are more, obviously, but electronic instruments, DAWs, and transducers, that's pretty much, these are the common devices. Let's take a look at the activities. So what it is that people are up to in the realm of music technology. So it's used principally to produce, present, and broadcast music. And, if you're interested in this field, you might want to pursue one of those activities for your life focus. Might be a good way to achieve career success. Here was my favorite music technology activity when I was growing up, when I was excited about this field many years ago, and that is multi-track recording, which allows multiple sounds captured via microphone or other transducers to be combined to make one cohesive whole. Now, of course, this is done with the digital audio workstation these days, a DAW, but back in the day and for what seemed like centuries, tape machines were how multi-track recording was done. And this is an old school tape machine that has 16 tracks. Look at all these VU meters. That means that you can have the drum set mic'd up, the kick, snare, overheads, tom-toms. You can have the bass player, the guitar player, the keyboard player, lead singer, background vocal 1, background vocal 2, auxiliary percussion, right? And then you press record and everyone's playing simultaneously and everyone has their own individual and editable track. That's multi-track recording. That's how all modern music recordings are created. That's how they can achieve those hyper real, out of this world productions, because there's absolute control of individual tracks. That's multi-track recording. Another activity that is common in the realm of music technology goes hand in hand with multi-track recording, and that is sequencing, which is the art and craft of arranging pre-recorded samples along a timeline for playback. Here's a sample of a kick drum. And then here's a sample of a snare drum. And then you place the kick drum here, and then another one, and then a snare drum here, and then a kick drum here, and then another kick drum here, and then a snare drum, maybe another snare. And then you press play and you get, it plays back what you programmed into it. That's what sequencing is. And then you usually add things like the hi-hat, stop. Most modern productions are a combination of sequencing and multi-track recording. There we go. My video is not playing. So you see here we have these samples placed on what looks like graph paper. Imagine a freehand graph paper and you got a pencil and you're just filling in specific boxes on your graph paper. Now imagine your graph paper is a timeline like that of bars and beats and measures. So what do we have here? Measure. Oh, I see what it is now. Yeah, this is beat 1. This is 1.2, which is the second beat of the first measure. And then 1.3 is the third beat of the first measure. And then 1.4 is the fourth beat of the fourth measure. Yeah, and this kick is on 1. This snare is on 2. This kick is on 1. And this snare is on 4. And the hi-hat's going along at a steady rate of 8 notes. Okay, that's sequencing, right? Commonly goes hand in hand with multi-track recording. Okay, mixing is resident to both fields, right? The process of balancing individual audio tracks for summation into a unified whole. So, and any multi-track recording project or sequencing project, you eventually need to balance your sounds so that whenever you finalize your project into a stereo file, Whenever you create a master for public consumption, everything is balanced and the sound is exciting and designed to garner attention. Mixing is the activity there. So it's adjust the volume, which is how loud it is. Adjust the pan, which is this sound left or is this sound right? You adjust the effects. It's exciting stuff. And then, of course, before the pandemic struck, live sound was a good outlet for professional work for this area of study. Of course, it'll likely come back, but there might be some significant changes to the field after the COVID crisis has passed us by. But running live sound essentially entails mixing, but instead of for permanent record in multitrack recording or sequencing, you're mixing for a live audience, like a club or a theater or a hall. But the activity is pretty equivalent to multi-track recording. You're just multi-track recording in real time. You need to run a mixer, need to know how to use effects, you need to know how to mix, use your ears wisely. Finally, the last bit of music technology activities is score writing or music engraving. Some of you might have experience here with Finale. Indeed, Finale is the score writer that I've used the most. But there are others, MuseScore, say, or Sibelius. I heard Sibelius is just as good as Finale, but I've been using Finale since 1998, and it's not changing now. Unlike DAWs such as Pro Tools or Cubase or Studio One, I know how to use several at this point. They basically all do the same thing. So too with music engraving software. These are used to create professional-looking scores if you are a composer. Okay, on to the last bit of our definition. So just to reiterate, the presentation here is organized by the definition of music technology. Music technology is any activity, device, or concept that supports the production of music. So we talked about the devices like the transducers and the activities like the mixing, and now the concepts. So what's this business of concept or an idea? Now, of course, you need an idea to initiate an activity or spur the invention of a device, so it's really ground zero here. So, for example, the concept of amplification, using electronic gear to make your sound louder. So there was this invention, I think it was for train stations, a public address system, amplification, and then soon after we had electric guitars, etc. Many fascinating and interesting concepts abound in the realm of music technology. Common ones include sound recording, public address, sequencing, effects, sound wave editing, score writing, EQ, limiting, sampling, overdubbing, auto tune. And all of these lights that you see on the background picture here, those are galaxies. There's a few stars in the forefront, but that's just an amazing picture. In any case, some wise person took this picture of deep space galaxies and made a sequence out of them and assigned different notes and sounds for each one of the galaxies. But so it's playing now. You can see on the left as this line goes to the right. See if you can hear it from my headphones. I don't, I don't know if you could hear that, but I just held my headphones to the microphone. I'll have to get the device audio together. Okay. What is music technology? Is it A, electronic musical instruments? B, any device, activity, or concept that supports the production of music? C, a digital audio workstation that aids the production of music? Or D, any recording, sample, or sequence that outlines a musical idea? Go ahead and chime in with audio. Anyone knows the answer.
B.
Nice job. Okay, check this out. So B, and then whenever you're taking the quiz, it might happen at the end after you click submit. It'll be, that's right. Music technology is any activity, device, or concept that supports the production of music. So there will be a piece of language that I imported from the lecture itself. What music technology activity consists of placing audio samples along a timeline? So this is the point I was trying to make when I was beatboxing. You have samples of kicks and snares and hi-hats, and then you sequence them along a timeline. And then once you get that right, or perhaps you got it wrong, it'll say something like, that's right, or no, I'm sorry. Sequencing is the art and craft of arranging pre-recorded samples along a timeline for playback. It is an extremely common form of music technology. If you're making beats with a DAW, the chances are rather good that you are sequencing. Of course, as I mentioned, notation software is a kind of sequencing. It's just sequencing using standard music notation as the interface, whereas most DAWs these days, like I have Studio One, its interface looks like that one slide, essentially graph paper that you fill in to indicate to the computer when you want a certain sound to be activated. All right, that's the art. That's the music technology activity of sequencing. Let's go back to one where we don't have the answers. Okay. Which is a list of transducers, right? This is the big one. This is the big device. Okay. A, compressor, expander, limiter, gate. B, coil pickup, piezo pickup, tone wheel, microphone. C, frequency, amplitude, wavelength, phase. Or D, dynamic, condenser, electret, or ribbon. Go ahead and
B.
chime in. And that's right. Nice job. Ding, ding, ding. He wins a brand new car. I wish I had fabulous cash prizes. Class would be so much more fun. That's right. Yeah, that's like, how are we going to get this sound into electricity? Well, thanks for asking. We're going to have to use a transducer, right? Maybe the most important device in the realm of music technology. Okay. There are more questions, obviously. I invite you to inspect this presentation and accompanying quiz. If nothing comes to your mind in the form of a question, that can be all for today.